Salutations everybody, it is Matty here. Today we are talking about one of the very best RPG series of all time today, one that's best defined as it's about the journey, not the destination. Thank you, red, green, blue ending. Anyway, we have a lot of speculation and facts building up together to lead to one clear thing, and that is that Mass Effect should be returning in 2020. We're going to be digging through all of that in today's video, so let's get into how this conversation started. I was over on Reddit and I noticed a couple of days ago that a lot of people were speculating that BioWare was teasing Mass Effect related news coming soon. You see, over on Twitter, BioWare put out #MassRelays, and it contained a video that included the opening to the first Mass Effect. When I first saw this, I didn't think much of it, quite honestly, because I felt like, okay, Mass Effect 1 has the type of introduction that you're like, okay, this is the start of something special. It had a good energy to it. You know it would be a good game. And for those who are not aware or haven't played Mass Effect before, mass relays are the mass transit devices scattered throughout the Milky Way, usually within these star systems. They form an enormous network allowing interstellar travels. So it's a pretty substantial part of the Mass Effect universe. Furthermore, a week before that, BioWare had tweeted out, however insignificant we might be, we will fight, we will sacrifice, and we will find a way. That's what humans do. This is a quote from Commander Shepard himself, and it features some art by a fan which they had linked. Now, this is where I think a couple of people may have been looking too deep, because BioWare's done this for a while. As we can see here, they had actually posted someone's Morrigan cosplay for Dragon Age, which looks awesome, by the way, but they had put a quote there and then they had linked the artist, because as it stands now, when you look at where BioWare is, right, they have Mass Effect, which has been reportedly put on ice since the disappointment that was Mass Effect Andromeda. Then you have Dragon Age, which is confirmed currently in development as of this point in time, but it won't be a while until we see that. You have Anthem, which sort of went down the tubes, and of course we have old BioWare series like Jade Empire and Knights of the Old Republic, which seem to lie dormant at this point in time, which means that a lot of their Twitter feed is going to be populated by fan postings to make sure they remain as a presence on the platform. Now, N7 Day did pass a number of months ago. BioWare didn't really have much to say on that day. Everyone looked forward to a Mass Effect related announcement at that point in time. Now, why exactly is that the case? Why is everyone looking for a Mass Effect remaster announcement? Well, it's quite obvious why, because EA has really changed their perspective over the years. You see, back in 2016, Peter Moore, when he had headed up EA, said, "We're a company that is focused on delivering for the future," he told IGN. I was asked a question once about remasters, and I said, "It's just not what we do. We've got incredibly talented dev studios around the world who are focusing on delivering new IP, new experiences, and more live services." And I mean, they certainly delivered on the last part. Let me tell you what, and I think out of everything else there, it took until fall in order to really deliver on a new experience or a new IP. But the winds of change had blown through EA, as some of you were aware. Patrick Soderlund had left, Peter Moore had left. Actually, Peter Moore heads up the Liverpool Football Club, which I think is kind of like a crazy career change to go lead EA in video games, and now you're working in like soccer. What? That's wild. But anyway, once they had left, you started to see a little bit of a change in perspective, and an understandable one, because then EA had remastered the classic Command and Conquer games. As you can see here, they had confirmed that it wouldn't have microtransactions in the game, which once again was a little bit surprising. Now, that's not to say that when those winds of change blew through EA that everything was good. We do know that the Battlefront 2 fiasco had come and left, and that was horrible for the company. Of course, now Battlefront 2 is fantastic. It has really had a resurgence. It's bounced back. It's the game that people wanted it to be, and I think it should be a timeless game for years to come. However, where all this speculation starts to turn into something reasonable is an earnings call that EA had in 2019. Here's what they say. With regards to products launching in fiscal 2021, we will add at least one more sports title to our annual slate, which the speculation is that NCAA is coming back. We will launch Medal of Honor VR. That game looks fantastic. As a VR owner now, I cannot wait. We will deliver some exciting remasters of fan favorites, including the Command and Conquer game we already disclosed, and we have 2 new unannounced EA partner titles coming from third-party developers. In addition, we have other unannounced titles in the fiscal year 21 slate. We will give specifics nearer the time. Now, it's no secret that BioWare has on their hands a lot of great IP, right? Like I mentioned, they have Dragon Age, they have Mass Effect, of course EA in general has Dead Space. So there's a lot of great titles that they could bring back in remasters, and this is why people wanted EA to embrace that, because for all their flaws, they own a lot of really good IP and ones that are timeless. Like, I would love to go back and play Dragon Age Origins, Dragon Age 2 even. Inquisition, you can go along, you can mind your own business, but I'd love to go back to those two. I think Dead Space would kill nowadays. I mean, that game, the way you engage in combat, the way you dismember enemies, the plasma cutter is easily one of the best weapons of all time in a video game, because it challenges you in a way that survival horror never really did, and then you get all these creative abilities, and that game's just amazing. I really hope to see that come back. But I think the most reasonable one, and absolutely hands down bar none the most requested one, is certainly Mass Effect to return. So when you take a look at BioWare's tweets now, where they're starting to ramp up the Mass Effect coverage, when you start to look at the changes that have hit EA, where they went from no remasters at all to saying, oh, the series is on ice. It's now going to be 3 years in a couple months since Andromeda had launched. I know, right? Like, time flies. It's kind of crazy. But anyway, it's going to be 3 years since Andromeda had launched. And now you have EA remastering Command and Conquer, and you have them confirming that they have some exciting fan favorites returning. I think it's quite obvious. The writing's on the wall. I don't like to label my speculation as fact, but as I said, man, the writing is on the wall here. It seems pretty apparent that EA does plan on bringing back some of their series, because, look, whether we like it or not, they are a business, and that's printing money. That is literally printing money. It blows my mind that when they had the greediest of higher ups at EA, that they were hesitant to do something like remasters. Like, that is the easiest form of printing money. It's low effort, the work's mostly done, and you already have an established love for the franchise, so you just pop the game out, up-res, better frame rate, some bug stomps, but you don't demand a whole team, years of work on a project. I mean, my goodness, man, it seems like so obvious. Furthermore, while this was stated when Soderlund was at the company, I still think it's worth returning to. I've seen people saying, oh, EA's not making another Mass Effect, Soderlund told Game Reactor at Gamescom. I see no reason why we shouldn't come back to Mass Effect. Why not? It's a spectacular universe, it's a loved series, it has a big fan base, and it's a game that has done a lot for EA and for BioWare. Now, this was circulating before he had even left the company. Imagine what happens when he leaves, Peter Moore leaves, the thoughts on remasters, re-releases starts to change, and this belief was already held at the company. I think it's pretty apparent what can be on our way. And it also makes sense for EA and BioWare given their current situation. Of course, we know Anthem is sort of dead and gone as it stands. There are rumors of Anthem returning with like a 2.0 update, which essentially overhauls the entire game. Like I mentioned, Mass Effect Andromeda was so bad, the series entirely got put on ice, and so they may be doing what we suggested for Bethesda after Fallout 76 launched. When that game came out, and it seemed like it was just controversy after controversy after controversy, everyone was like, if we're Bethesda, re-release Fallout 3 and New Vegas in a dual package, put it on PS4, put it on Xbox One, put it on PC, make sure that it's supported, it's current, it works on all platforms, and just put out something that will make the public happy, because right now they're not happy with the current form of the IP, because that also allows the company to gauge feedback when they go back to these games on what people like. There's so many points of data that they can use, not just sales, but like re-engaged conversation about parts people like. And I'm sure there is heat mapping in the game. We've heard about that in the past, where you can see where players went to the most during their playthroughs to sort of gauge what players were engaging with the most. I think that type of data could be really useful for the company, and it could also be useful for a company like Bethesda. So I think it makes the most sense. Once again, I'm going to say it. I think the writing's on the wall. I believe that Mass Effect is coming back at some point within the next year or so. I mean, when it comes to exciting remasters of fan favorites, I can't imagine it's something like, we'll say, Battlefield, right? I don't think that's a game that gets remastered, because they keep iterating on it and it's a multiplayer series. And it's not like EA can't dig really far back into their archives and yank something out. But I think out of all of their fan favorites, Mass Effect sort of stands at the top right next to Dragon Age. I think they're just neck and neck, and I feel like the company could just benefit from pulling one of those two out, more than likely Mass Effect. The tricky part about Mass Effect 2 that we have to think of is that despite the ending, all three games are connected They do port over save files, so not only do you have to get all 3 games working on the systems, you have to make sure that you're able to carry over your save and that everything transfers nice and smoothly. Can you have all that data on one disk? Does it have to be multiple disks? How does that have to play? One thing we do need to be aware of is that Mass Effect 1, 2, and 3 are all available via backwards compatibility on the Xbox. We do know that backwards compatibility is a big part of the future of gaming. We've heard rumors that the PS5 will support backwards compatibility throughout all of the PlayStation generations. I'll believe that when I see it. I don't really think that's necessarily possible when it comes to the PS3. I think PS4 and 2, yes, I could buy into, but obviously you do need backwards compatibility for PS3 to bring Mass Effect 1, 2, and 3 to the PlayStation. So I'm starting to wonder if that will have a major impact on a decision by EA to bring these games back. Do they just do what Bethesda did and essentially go, yeah, we already have these games on backwards compatibility. If you want to play those, go play them there. I think some of these companies don't understand what it's like to celebrate the release of a beloved game once more, to kind of experience it's nostalgia based, really. But anyway, I've rambled on long enough. That'll do it for me, ladies and gentlemen. Just keep all this information in mind as we go forward. Obviously, it's not confirmed, but I think it's pretty obvious it's going to happen. I think there's more points suggesting that Mass Effect is coming back rather than not. But I'll leave it in your hands. What do you think about Mass Effect returning? Is it possible? Let me know in the comments down below. Other than that, follow me on Twitter, follow me on Instagram. Big thank you to the patrons once again for supporting my crazy butt as I speculate a ton. I appreciate each and every single one of you, and I'll talk with all of you soon. Do consider supporting my Patreon as it fuels all the content I create here. Stay sexy, stay active. I love you all. Peace.